on which affluent estate and houses are built. They own the mines that exploit our mineral resources. The bourgeoisie own the farms, the forest, and ocean economy, and the banks and the mines, and all other commanding heights of the economy. While we, the proletariat, we must sell our labor to them at a very exploitative rate to survive. Fighters, this is the most basic and fundamental cases made by the founding manifesto of the EFF and the 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars. Economic power is the foundation of all organized life. Our relationship with the economy and the productive forces constitute the base, whilst all else, politics, religion, spirituality, art, and science constitute the superstructure which is informed and influenced by the base. Where will we worship our God, perform our customs and rituals, or advance politics, the arts and science, if we are alienated from the mineral resources of our land of birth? Even the basis of law arises out of the need to mediate the economic relations between the oppressed, the oppressor, and the oppressed. The economy is everything. This is why we must never separate the theoretical development of Marxism, which is our guiding tool of analysis, from practical activity. This must not be misrepresented to reject theoretical discourse and dialogue or seem as a call for mindless activism. Rather, our call for land reform, the nationalization of the banks and the mines, the ownership and control of all mineral resources and their local beneficiation must be located within the Marxist law of development of human history. Our primary enemy, therefore, remains monopoly capital, both locally and globally, which owns and controls the means of production. The motive forces that stand to benefit from the ultimate defeat of the bourgeoisie are the proletariat. The proletariat are the ordinary people of South Africa who remain landless, economically dominated, and excluded. Our fight for economic freedom in our lifetime must be located within the Marxist ideology of all history up to this point in existing society. Ours is a class struggle against capitalism, imperialism, and the alienation of our people from their mineral resources and wealth. The economy must be brought back into the hands of the people, and the victory of the poor and the working class who do not own the means of production against the elite and exploitative bourgeoisie class will sow the seeds of socialist state where all of us will share in the wealth and the riches of our land. Our government of the EFF will see the destruction of all classes and the creation of egalitarian society where all shall be free and equal and none will benefit at the expense of another. The understanding of classes is the cornerstone and foundation of understanding all Marxist theory and its application. If you have a full grasp of our class struggle, the historical development, and contemporary application, you will begin to appreciate Marxism as a tool of analysis and go on to explain it to our communities in their own languages. Comrades, President Vladimir Lenin, one of the ideological pillars of the very EFF we claim our membership to, in his writing, I quote, "Should we participate in bourgeois parliaments?" I close quote. Reflects on the importance of why we ought to participate in the electoral processes. Many amongst us forget why we participate in councils, legislatures, and parliament, and mistaken our participation as a means of personal achievement instead of it being part of a revolutionary task as leftist organization. There's no water. Cheers. In his paper, Lenin reflects on a question that was troubling leftists in both Germany and Russia in the 19th century regarding the relevance and the necessity of parliaments and where the vanguard party should locate itself with regard to participation and the national consciousness of the working class at the time. Open quote, parliamentarism is of course politically absolute to the communists in Germany, but, and that is the whole point, we must not regard what is absolute to us as something absolute to a class, to the masses. Here again, we find that the lefts do not know how to reason, do not know how to act as the party of a class, as the party of the masses. You must not sink to the level of the masses, to the level of the backward strata of the class. That is incontestable. You must tell them the bitter truth. You are in duty bound to call their bourgeois, democratic, and parliamentary prejudices what they are, prejudices. But at the same time, you must soberly follow the actual state of the class consciousness and preparedness of the entire class, not only of its communist vanguard, and of all the working people, not only of the advanced elements. Participation in parliamentary election and in the struggle on the parliamentary platform is an obligatory on the party of the revolutionary proletariat, specifically for the purpose of educating the backward strata of its own class, and for the purpose of awakening and enlightening the underdeveloped, downtrodden, and ignorant rural masses. While you lack the strength to do away with bourgeois parliaments and every other type of reactionary institution, you must work within them, because it is there that you will still find workers who are misled by their priests, by the conditions of rural life. Otherwise, you risk turning into nothing but windbags, close quote. Lenin continues, noting in his reflection on the progression of the Russian Revolution in different periods, how the Bolsheviks tactfully located themselves within parliament to reduce it to absurdity, while simultaneously organizing Soviets for the overthrow of parliaments that were initially deemed a paragon of democratic practices. He says, open quote, there is a great usefulness during a revolution of a combination of mass action outside reactionary parliament with an opposition sympathetic, or better still directly supporting the revolution within, close quote. The mass action comes in the form of strikes in demands for various socio-economic changes that a bourgeois parliament simply cannot meet. While inside the very same parliament, there are legal parliamentarians who make the same demand. This is the most tactful way of forging a revolutionary program. The EFF exists in legislatures to fulfill the minimum revolutionary program, and the basis and a blueprint of our revolutionary program, which we must always pursue while in the legislatures, is the 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars of the EFF. Expropriation of land without compensation for equal redistribution in use, nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy without compensation, building state and government capacity, which will lead to the abolishment of tenders, free quality education, healthcare, housing, and sanitation, massive protected industrial development to create millions of sustainable jobs, including the introduction of minimum wages to close the wage gap between the rich and the poor, massive investment in the development of the African economy, and advocating for a move from reconciliation to justice in the entire continent. Open, accountable, corrupt-free government and society without fear of victimization by the state agencies. We therefore, comrades, are in pursuit of state power, not for self-interest, but for revolutionary purpose, as described by the leader of the Great October Revolution of 1917, Lenin. Fellow fighters, the Third National People's Assembly is not a task we are undertaking for its own sake. It is an integral part of what constitutes a revolution premised on Leninism. It is Lenin who teaches us that revolutionary party constituted by revolutionary class and led by professional revolutionaries must always be in the practice of democracy. It is Lenin who writes, I quote, "The whole party organization is now built on a democratic basis. This means that all the party members take part in the election of officials, committee members, and so forth. That all the party members discuss questions concerning the political campaigns of the proletariat, and that all the party members determine the line of tactics of the party organizations." Close quote. Fighters, Lenin also taught us that we must work tirelessly to ensure that the highest standing bodies are elected, accountable, and subject to recall. This, along with democratic centralism, which Lenin described as a freedom of discussion and unity in action, forms the fundamental building an organic vanguard and revolutionary party that will liberate the working class. There is often a temptation and some confusion, in some cases, misuse of the concept of democratic centralism. At times, some commissars and fighters and people outside our movement attempt to impose their personal preferences and decisions on lower structures under the pretense of democratic centralism. But as Lenin teaches us, true democratic centralism requires that the decisions are made through genuinely democratic processes characterized by robust participation, open debates, persuasion, and collective agreement. Only such decisions born from the democratic process can be considered legitimate under the principle of democratic centralism. Once a decision is democratically reached, all of us as members of the organization are bound to respect and uphold it as a collective mandate. We are not here at the Third National People's Assembly because we have no other task. We are here because ideologically we are obligated to do so. Internal democracy is sacrosanct, and without it, we are doomed to follow the path of fascism. There is no single individual who possesses so much revolutionary wisdom that they can assume leadership responsibility without a democratic mandate. We must defend the principle, fighters, without any doubt that we are ideologically correct. There is no genuine revolution that can be led outside of a revolutionary and socialist democracy, not bourgeois democracy, but people's democracy. If you doubt democracy because it has potential to be corrupted, then consider if a collective can be corrupted, what makes you think an individual cannot be corrupted? We must never surrender a people's organization to the whims of an individual. It is for this reason, comrades, that all issues we have proposed in the public domain are open for discussion, agreement, and disagreement here at this National People's Assembly. We have diagnosed that we need to establish sub-regional structures and possibly do away with regional structures so that our movement and its leaders emerge organically from where they reside and lead their own communities. I wish to make emphasis that I feel very strong about this point. It is part of our organizational experience that the regional structures in the EFF are not fit for purpose. This reflects an error in organizational design inherited from the former liberation movement, which we must now do away with. Additionally, we have proposed that we establish an EFF Youth Command and do away with the EFF Student Command so that we may appeal to all the youth of South Africa. The gift of democracy is that this NPA will resolve on this question, and no single individual has the right to impose their will on anyone. Compatriots, internal democracy does not mean weakness or the absence of decisive leadership, which we are often accused for. The West has a tendency to create the impression that one of the problems confronting the continent and liberation movement is that of authority. The notion is that the absence of authority leads to freedom and prosperity, and that all attempts at running communist and socialist states have failed primarily due to the so-called authoritarian character of their leadership. President Robert Mugabe, brother leader Muammar Gaddafi, Captain Thomas Sankara, Commandant Fidel Castro, President of the People's Republic of China, and the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, and President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, are all accused of being authoritarian, as though the West is governed by the most democratic of ideas. Put differently, it is as though democracy itself lacks authority. Authority refers to the imposition of the will of one sector of society onto another. In democracy, authority refers to the will of the majority prevailing over the few. Authority is ever present. For any system to function, there must be a command from superior to subordinate. To demonize authority within the revolution, within the context of our war against capitalism, is either ignorant or a deliberate attempt to sow confusion. What liberal thinkers fail to understand is the hypocritical critique of authority is that authority exists under all economic and political systems, even in capitalism thrives through authority. Capitalism survives because the state which currently exists to protect the interest of the capitalist class operates with the authority of the monopoly on violence. Authority refers to the system, hierarchy, and legitimacy conferred by the people or bought by money and state violence in the case of capitalism. As socialists, we are engaged in a war against the most perverse global economic system known to humankind. The absence of authority in our revolution is a guarantee of failure. The West wants us to lack authority so that we become chaotic and disorganized. We must never allow our enemies to define us. We must always subject ourselves to the authority of leadership, a leadership that draws its legitimacy from the masses, not to reactionary and liberal definition of democracy